If you only knew how easy.
The greatest guitar players in history did not always receive the recognition their talent deserved. Some spent careers in the shadow of more famous bandmates, while others simply never caught the right break. These are 12 of the most gifted, most overlooked guitar heroes that only true fans remember. Number 12, Terry Kath. According to Chicago saxophonist Walt Paraziter, Jimi Hendrix approached him backstage at the Whiskey A Go Go in the late 1960s and said, "Your guitar player is better than me." That endorsement from the man Rolling Stone would later name the greatest guitarist of all time should have secured Kath's legacy permanently. It never did. A founding member of Chicago, Kath appeared on the band's explosive 1969 debut and delivered raw, feedback-scorched solos that floored every musician who heard them. Steve Vai later called him an inspired, visceral player whose tone helped shape the sound of rock guitar in popular music. Tragically, Kath died on January 23, 1978, at just 31 years old in an accidental shooting at a party in Woodland Hills, California. Number 11, Roy Buchanan. In 1971, American Public Television aired a documentary called Introducing Roy Buchanan, introducing a guitarist so extraordinary it has since been informally described as a portrait of the world's greatest unknown guitarist. By the time cameras found him, he had already allegedly turned down an offer from the Rolling Stones, preferring to keep playing small clubs in the Washington, D.C. area. The documentary earned him a recording contract with Polydor Records and earned praise from both John Lennon and Merle Haggard. Jeff Beck dedicated his version of "'Cause We've Ended as Lovers" to Buchanan in the liner notes of Blow by Blow. His pioneering use of pinch harmonics and volume swells influenced Danny Gaton, Robbie Robertson, and Gary Moore. He passed away on August 14, 1988, at 48 years old, still largely unknown outside devoted guitar circles. Number 10, Danny Gaton. In the Washington, D.C. club circuit of the 1970s, word spread fast about a guitarist who could play anything: rockabilly, blues, jazz, and country, all with blistering technical precision. Danny Gaton called his style redneck jazz, and it was unlike anything else in American roots music. Guitar Player magazine's 1989 cover called him the world's greatest unknown guitarist, and Steve Vai stated on record that Gaton came closer than anyone to being the best guitar player who ever lived. Despite critical admiration that stretched from rock to jazz circles, his 1991 release on Elektra Records, 88 Elmira Street, his first major label album, never broke commercially. Gaton took his own life on October 4, 1994, at the age of 49, leaving behind a catalog of recordings that continues to astonish guitarists and music lovers to this day. Number 9, Brad Whitford. Multiple platinum albums across 4 decades. Aerosmith became one of the best-selling American rock bands of all time. Yet within that massive success, guitarist Brad Whitford spent decades in the shadow of his more media-savvy partner, Joe Perry. Whitford joined the band in Boston in 1971, cementing the classic lineup, and his sharp, precise playing gave tracks like Nobody's Fault and Back in the Saddle their gnarly, snarling edge. While Perry drew comparisons to Keith Richards, Whitford's technical approach aligned more closely with Jeff Beck. Even after Aerosmith's multi-platinum comeback with Permanent Vacation in 1987, Guitar Conversations consistently circled Perry. Whitford's contributions were never less than essential, but the spotlight rarely landed where it should have. Number 8. Cudter. A sought-after session player by his mid-20s, Cudter contributed that haunting slide guitar line to the Rolling Stones' 1971 recording of Sister Morphine, and his fingerprints are on some of the most respected records of the era. Despite that pedigree, Cudter spent most of his career operating just outside the mainstream spotlight. His 1979 album, Bop Till You Drop, made history as the first major label album recorded entirely in digital. Yet, the milestone barely registered with casual listeners. Drawing from American blues, Hawaiian slack key, and Mexican folk traditions, Cudter built a style so singular it defied any standard category. Artists from Los Lobos to David Lindley cited him as a direct influence. His name still rarely appears in greatest guitarist discussions, which remains one of classic rock's most glaring oversights.
If you're sick and you want to get away, tell him what you are. If you're sick.
Number 7. Lel George. At just 24 years old, he was already earning hushed comparisons to Robert Johnson and Muddy Waters. Lel George founded Little Feat in Los Angeles in 1969, bringing a radical approach to bottleneck slide guitar that fused rhythm and blues, country and swamp rock into something entirely its own. His 1972 album Sailin' Shoes is still cited by critics as essential listening, and the 1974, a masterpiece, Feats Don't Fail Me, now peaked at number 36 on the Billboard 200, earning gold certification. Musicians were paying far closer attention than radio programmers. Bonnie Raitt and Bob Seger both named George as a formative influence. He collapsed on tour and died on June 29, 1979, at just 34 years old, leaving behind a slide guitar legacy that devoted fans still quietly revere.
Peter torn apart, driven every kind of rig that's ever been.
Before we continue, which of these guitarists surprised you the most? Were you already a fan of any of these overlooked legends? Or are you discovering some for the very first time? Drop a comment below and let us know where in the world you are watching from. Number 6. Jan Achterman. Best guitarist in the world. That was the official verdict in the 1973 Melody Maker Readers Poll, placing Jan Achterman above Eric Clapton, Ritchie Blackmore, and Jimmy Page. The Dutch virtuoso had earned it, and then some. His work with focus on the 1971 album Moving Waves, particularly the explosive, instrumental Hocus Pocus, reached number 9 on the US Billboard Hot 100 and introduced American audiences to a speed and precision that stopped other guitarists cold. Focus albums. Moving Waves and Focus 3 both went gold in the United States. Yet, without sustained American radio support after 1973, Achterman's name faded from the international conversation almost entirely. Today, he remains a celebrated figure in the Netherlands and among progressive rock devotees, but virtually unknown to mainstream audiences everywhere else. Number 5. Alex Lifson. Best Rock Guitarist in Guitar Player magazine, twice. First in 1984 and then again in 2008, separated by nearly a quarter century of consistent excellence. That is the timeline of Alex Lifeson's career, a guitarist who repeatedly earned peer respect while being almost entirely overshadowed by his bandmates in Rush. Neil Peart's drumming and Geddy Lee's bass work drew the critical headlines for decades, but Lifeson's multi-layered guitar, textures were the connective tissue holding songs like Limelight, The Spirit of Radio, and Tom Sawyer together. Rush's 1981 album Moving Pictures sold over 4 million copies in the United States alone, and remains one of the most celebrated progressive rock albums in history. Lifeson's influence on a generation of guitarists continues to be felt to this day. Before we get to the top 4, which era do you feel produced the most underappreciated guitarists? The 60s, the 70s, the 80s, or the 90s? Let us know your pick in the comments. Number 4. Clarence White. Before he joined the Byrds in 1968, Clarence White had already spent a decade redefining bluegrass flat-picking with the Kentucky Colonels, earning a devoted following among acoustic guitar enthusiasts across the American folk circuit. His arrival in the Byrds pushed the band toward country rock, and his influence helped define the genre before it even had a proper name. Together with drummer Gene Parsons, White co-invented the B-bender, a mechanical device fitted inside his Telecaster that allowed him to bend the B string and replicate the sound of a pedal steel guitar. That invention shaped country and country rock guitar for decades afterward. On July 15, 1973, White was struck and killed by a drunk driver in Palmdale, California. He was 29 years old and one of the most innovative guitarists of his generation. Number 3. Sterling Morrison. In 1967, while psychedelia was taking over San Francisco and the Sunset Strip, a small group in New York City was quietly building something darker, stranger, and ultimately far more influential. The Velvet Underground released their debut that year, and though initial sales were modest, the record's long-term impact on punk, alternative, and indie rock has since been exhaustively documented. Lou Reed and John Cale received the bulk of the historical credit, but Sterling Morrison's guitar work was the abrasive, relentless backbone that held the band's sound together. His rhythm playing on Sweet Jane and White Light, White Heat gave those recordings their grinding wall of noise power. Morrison left music for years to earn a doctorate in medieval studies, before returning to perform with the reunited band in 1993. He passed away on August 30th, 1995. Number 2. Nuno Bettincourt. The next, Eddie Van Halen. That was the label attached to Nuno Bettincourt by Music Press in the late 1980s. And while the comparison carried genuine weight, it also created an impossible standard for a guitarist who was already building something entirely his own. Extreme formed in Boston in 1985, and by 1990 their album Pornography had gone double platinum, driven in part by the acoustic ballad More Than Words, which reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 on June 8, 1991. More than words to show you feel. That song became Bettincourt's most visible calling card, ironically obscuring the ferocious technique on display in tracks like Get the Funk Out and Is Blazing. Solo showpiece Flight of the Wounded Bumblebee. The ballad all but buried the shredder underneath it. More than words is all you have. Number 1. Lindsey Buckingham. Rumors spent 31 weeks at number 1 in 1977 and eventually sold over 40 million copies worldwide, making it one of the best-selling albums in recorded music history. Behind that staggering achievement was Lindsey Buckingham, a guitarist whose finger-picking style, rooted in folk and country influences rather than blues rock conventions, gave Fleetwood Mac a sonic identity unlike anything else on late 70s radio. His contributions to Go Your Own Way, The Chain, and Never Going Back Again showcased a player of rare versatility, capable of ferocity and delicacy within the same album side. Artists from Elvis Costello to Matthew Sweet have cited Buckingham as a defining influence on their approach to guitar. He remains one of the most distinctive and quietly undersung guitar voices the classic rock era ever produced.